Hi, grade 10s. I'm just going to go over the short questions that you were asked to do on page 79 and 87. Okay, let's have a look at the questions. All right, so I've just made, I know they're a bit blurred, but I've just put the questions here as well, in case some of you don't have the textbook. And I've also put all the textbook pages now onto Google Classroom, but it's easier for us to see now what's going on. So page 70 to 89, not 87, is the transpiration graph. So it says examine the following graphs that show relationships between transpiration rate, the speed, and environmental factors. Okay, so the first one says, it's a bit blurred, so I'm going to read from my textbook. Okay, indicate whether the following statements are true or false, and if false, correct the statement. So as temperature increases, transpiration rate decreases. So look at this graph, as temperature increases, transpiration rate decreases. No, you can see that it increases. So that is false. Okay, it should be the other way around, increases. Number 2, transpiration rate is inversely proportional to relative humidity. As the humidity rises, as the air becomes more full of water vapor, transpiration is inversely proportional because it's decreasing. Because the more humidity there is around the leaves, the lower is the gradient, the less steep is the gradient between the inside and the outside of the leaf, so less water vapor will leave through the stomata. Okay, then so that is true. Number 3, as wind speed increases, transpiration increases. Transpiration rate increases. Yes, you can see that transpiration rate increases here, but it also levels off. Because if the plant transpires too much, it's going to wilt very quickly. So what they will do is that they will close their guard cells, some of them, or close them so that they're only partially open, because they don't want too much water to be lost by transpiration, but they still want water and salts to move up through the plant so that the water and salts can be used by the different tissues. So that is true. Number 4, there is a direct relationship between temperature and the rate of transpiration. The first graph, temperature, rate of transpiration, yes. So as temperature of the environment increases, so does transpiration. Okay, they will lose more water vapor as it gets hotter because more water vapor passes out through the stomata. Okay, so easy questions, but these graphs are quite important, and you're going to see, well, even when we did enzyme graphs, you know, we see this shape, especially the third one, and when you do microorganisms in grade 11, they will pop up again, and in grade 12 again. Okay. Next one, so model for page 87, the aphid feeding on the plant sap. It's a very nice little question, kind of brings everything together. So it says here, aphids may be used to sample plant sap. In other words, you can use the aphids and get what they suck out of the plant tissue and analyze it. Okay, these small insects feed by pushing their long, thin mouth parts called stylets, like little needles or proboscis, stylets, into the plant tissue through the surface of the young plant stem into the underlying tissues. Plant sap flows through the stylet into the aphid. So they're basically sucking out some of the phloem sap. If the aphid is removed while sucking the phloem sap, with the stylet still in the phloem sap will ooze out under pressure. So if you pick the little aphid off, and you'll see a little drop of phloem sap where you pull its stylet out, and then you can analyze it. Okay, for example, it's called a spectrophotometer. It's a machine that analyzes, you know, molecules in a sample. Okay, all right. So number 1, from which type of vascular tissue was the sample taken? Well, because it's got sucrose and amino acids in, then you know that it must be phloem. All right. Number 2, and the answers are there. Okay. State 1 substance that was synthesized or made by the plant. So sucrose, remember they make glucose by photosynthesis. They can turn some into fructose, and then the fructose and the glucose can join to form sucrose, the disaccharide. They also make amino acids from glucose. They also make growth hormones. We don't do that in our syllabus, but they can make growth hormones called auxins. You know, plants don't just grow, they need hormones to tell those meristematic tissues to switch on. Okay, right, the next one, so that was that answer. Okay, so it said state one substance that was made by the plant. So you don't just have to say sucrose, could be amino acids and growth hormones as well. Okay, because those aren't absorbed from the ground or the air. It should be, I see the question number is funny. So we'll just use what's in the textbook. Okay, so question number 4, name 4 elements that were absorbed by the root hair cells. So remember, salts are absorbed with the water. So potassium ions, chloride ions, magnesium ions, sodium ions, those are all the salts dissolved in the water. All right, you can see there. Okay, then number 5 in the textbook. State the organic molecule that is made up of amino acids. So the plant can convert some of its glucose molecules into amino acids, and then those amino acids will be put together to form proteins. For example, enzymes and what else do you think? Okay, enzymes to control photosynthesis, to control cellular respiration, to make cell membrane proteins, to make cytoplasm, to make hormones. Hormones are also proteins. Right, the next question. See, this number in here in the model answer is correct, but in the textbook is wrong. So the second number 5 in the textbook, it says explain why sucrose and not starch is present in the cell sap, and what happens to the sucrose once it has been transported to its destination. So sucrose is a disaccharide. Starch is a polysaccharide. It's going to be a very, very, very big molecule. It's going to be too big to move along in the phloem sap. So sucrose is moved along the phloem sap, and it can be either up or down the plant. Think of a sugarcane plant, and it could be stored as starch. So sucrose, it's soluble in water, so it can move up and down the plant sap in the phloem cells, the sieve tube cells, whereas starch is insoluble in water. So when it gets to the sinks, remember, source is where the glucose is made. It can be changed to sucrose. It moves down the phloem, maybe to the roots where it can be stored, and there it is stored as starch. So sucrose is joined together to become starch, and now starch will stay there because it's a very big molecule and can't pass out of the cell membrane. So that you might remember is when you might remember back to the little starch bag experiment, that one little Google form that you did for me with the little dialysis tubing bag full of starch solution, and how the iodine moved from the beaker, from the solution in the beaker into that little bag, and it turned the starch solution blue-black, because starch molecules are very large and they're not transported around, but they are stored inside cells, and then they're too big to leave. But if they are broken into sugars again, then they can leave or be used by the cell. Okay, that's the end of the activities. The revision questions, I've said you can do them if you want. All right, you can have a look at these answers. It's for revision, so you could go over them now or before a cycle test or the end of year exam. Okay, it's just to give you some more ways in which this section could be asked.